Gold Invest. Explore opportunity.
Gold is broken through $3,500 per ounce. Silver is worth more than $41 per ounce now. And even copper has been rising towards $10,000 per ton recently. Great times for a company like Prismo Metals, ticker PRYZ on the CSE, that has projects covering all three metals. Currently, though, the company is focusing on silver and just recently signed the option to acquire 100% of the historic Silver King and Ripsey mines in Arizona. We're talking to CEO Alain Lambert and Chief Exploration Officer Dr. Craig Gibson today to hear more about that, and especially about the first exploration results from Silver King. Welcome, gentlemen.
It's nice to be with you, Bjorn, as always.
Thank you very much to have us here.
Always a pleasure. So let's start with a quick or very quick summary of what made you acquire the Silver King mine, historic mines, and what potential you saw there.
Well, really, we had been working in the Arizona Copper Belt at our Hot Breccia property. And over the last few years, I've had the opportunity to visit the Silver King and Ripsey mines for a third party to help them evaluate it. So I was aware of the project, and it actually became available recently. So we came up with the idea of putting an exploration program together on what was one of Arizona's greatest producers historically. So we thought it was a great opportunity to get on something new and jumpstart our exploration in Arizona.
Your listeners will know that we have other projects. So we've got Palos Verdes silver project in Mexico, probably the one project that we're best known for, surrounded on three sides by Vizsla Silver. Vizsla Silver is our largest shareholder. And so it's an area of interest to Vizsla. And I think as it relates to Palos Verdes, we're going to wait for them to move up to the Panuco district on the northeast side where we are. And I think eventually that asset will be purchased by Vizsla. And then we have the Hot Breccia copper play just down the road from Silver King. And we still intend to continue to advance that. The next phase for Hot Breccia is 5,000 meters of drilling. And we're either going to do it ourselves or continue on with discussions with majors that might want to partner up with us. And as Craig mentioned, he was aware of Silver King. He had been there. He had talked to us about it. And we decided that as it was still available in July, that we'd pick it up and we would be able to put our exploration team led by Craig on the property right away, which is what we did.
Okay, so let's get into the details of that. Craig, what kind of work have you done over the last few months and weeks at Silver King, and what were you setting out to do to show there?
Well, basically, the Silver King, although it was, it's a famous past producer, historically produced 6 million ounces of silver at very high grades. There's really been no exploration program done there. Everything was mining. In the 1880s, late 1800s, it produced most of those 6 million ounces. It produced a little bit in the 1920s, but nobody's ever really explored it, especially with modern methods. So our goal was to go in there and try to figure out what this is. It was pretty challenging because the deposit is a very steeply plunging cylindrical body, which are cropped out underneath a hill, which has been mined now. So it's basically there's a large hole in the ground that over the last 30 years or so has been partially filled in. So you can't really see the ore deposit. And what we wanted to do was see what it is, how it formed as much as possible, and get a handle on how we can do a drill program on it. So we just spent about 4 weeks there, still planning another week here, but we've been mapping and sampling around the glory hole and also cataloging small mines and prospects on the property around the historic mine. And it's been very interesting. We've come up with some pretty good anomalies in soil sampling. We found some veins that we didn't know existed in the past. So the goal was to develop a target for the drilling and also look for anything that we might not have known about before.
Okay, and as you alluded or just said, that certainly you managed to do that. It was said in your latest press release, 2 new veins, mineralized veins, that you hadn't known about before. Can you tell us about that? Where were they? What does that mean for the future exploration? What does it mean for Prismo?
Well, both veins are, crop out on the land package that we control there. One of the main concerns of us and of probably everybody is, what's left at Silver King. It was a historic producer. Is it all mined out? Did we just pick up a shell of a mine? And, we feel that's not the case based on historical information and some brief opening by the current owners of the property in the late 90s and early 2000s. They opened the shaft, and based on what they saw and based on historic records, the upper portions of the cylindrical ore body are still in place. They were not heavily mined. Most of the mining was deeper down in the system. But while we were out there, we were looking around, and I noticed a very large dump, mine dump, off of, away from the Silver King property. And we didn't have any record of that. We didn't know what it was for sure. I went over and looked at it, and it just, most of these things are shafts out there, but this looked like a collapsed tunnel or adit. There's a depression in the side of the hill. And I looked around a bit and found some veins in the side of the adit there, or the collapsed adit. Took a couple whacks at the vein, and there's sulfide minerals in it, galena, tetrahedrite, minerals that look like Silver King mineralization. So I looked around there, and there's a small stockpile of similar mineralization there. There's some evidence that they were smelting this mineralization, and there's some slag piles, and you could see where they recovered the metal from this. So it looked like a vein that we didn't know about before. It was polymetallic. It has silver, lead, zinc, and also probably copper in it. So it looks like Silver King style mineralization, and so it was something new, and it's a new target that nobody's looked at before.
Okay, so just to clarify, you haven't had any essays back on that, what you saw there, but you think you had a portable instrument there to get early readings.
Visually, you could see it's pretty good in lead and zinc, probably copper, and we had a portable XRF that shows silver values in it. And I don't want to really give those numbers because they're not representative, but they show there's silver there for sure in that, and it just looks similar to the mineralization at the Silver King itself, which is the first time we've found that on the property other than at Silver King. Looking at samples from the historic production, basically on the surface.
And beyond, we also have a number of samples that are at SGS. So they're in the lab and they're being prepared. And as soon as we receive them, certainly sometime this month, we'll have the team analyze them, lay it out on the map, and then we'll release them as a whole package as soon as available.
Yeah, certainly looking forward to that. And also it's good to hear that they might be available this month. You never know how the labs are backed up or how long it will take. So hopefully this will come to pass. Just a quick question on what you told us. So this is away from the main shaft, from the Silver King mine where has been mining before, what you found there. How far away was that? I seem to remember something like 300 meters or?
It's several hundred meters away from the historic workings. And, after I found it, we did a little searching around. Outcrop in the area is not super. A lot of alluvial cover, but going through the arroyos, we think we've traced it to the vicinity of the mine. It doesn't go right into the mine; it goes slightly south of it, or south and east. But we think it's several 100-meter long vein system right now. We just have a few points along it, but we'll be doing more work on it to identify the orientation and be able to program a further exploration.
Okay, so there's still people on the property looking at what you found there and trying to get more information. But then, and let's say you will wait probably for the results of the batch of samples you gave into the laboratory, as Alan alluded to. But then you're going to do a first pass kind of drill program, right? Is this planned for this month even, or when could you possibly start with that?
We think we'll probably be drilling in October to early November. I mean, we've submitted the plan of operations to the Forest Service for the drill program. We don't envision too many problems getting that approved because it's on basically the mine site at the Silver King mine. All the areas we're proposing drilling from has been disturbed. They're by active mining in the past. So we're not moving any new soil or anything like that. So we think it'll be relatively quickly, hopefully late this month, early October, we might have a approval to go ahead on that, and then we'll mobilize as soon as possible after that.
Okay, so possibly that might mean that we might have some drill results before the end of the year. Again, subject to the permits and then the labs. But just to talk about this first drill program again, what would you want to achieve with these? I think I imagine there wouldn't be a very extensive program at first, but to gather more information on what you have there at Silver King? Or?
Yeah, the idea originally was to drill a small program about 1,000 meters right in the area of the historic mining operation. And the goal of that was two, really. One was to test this, our theory that the upper portion of the deposit has not been extensively mined. So we had several holes planned, drilled right down the throat of the system, crossing it actually, but drilling right across the upper levels of it. And also a secondary objective was to test for mineralization adjacent to this cylindrical ore body that's been described. It's described as a stockwork, and most stockworks grade out from dense stockwork to a more widely spaced veining, and that could be it could be a halo of lower grade mineralization around this very high grade central core, and that was the goal of the drill program, was test both of those, the high grade central core and the potential halo of lower grade mineralization around it, which with current prices, may not be so low grade as it was in the past. So that's our goal, is to test that. And actually, we put a bunch of additional drill sites during our permitting just to have for future work. And a couple of those sites, I think, we might be able to drill these veins that we've recently found from those. So we'll evaluate that, over the next week or two and see whether we can incorporate a hole or two into those veins.
Okay, interesting. I mean, let's say, or hopefully, the first batch of results comes out and shows interesting silver and lead and copper mineralization. Then you start the drilling, and the drill results show that you have something there. So then you might be able, at a future point, to raise money at a higher price. And although Prisma has been moving up quite nicely the last couple of days, and do an even bigger drill program, right? Might look like a good plan going forward to me.
I certainly would like us to, once we get going on the drilling, to continue. I actually are getting inbound calls from investors wanting to invest. The reason I bring it up is just to reiterate how good a market we're in right now on the junior side. Finally, the macro favorable trends on commodity prices are trickling down to the junior space a little bit more. And I also want to emphasize something that we haven't touched on, Bjorn, this morning, is the location of the Silver King and its copper potential. So it's important to know that I like to use the donut analogy. So we're the hole in the donut, and the donut is actually Resolution Copper. Resolution Copper is a joint venture between Rio Tinto and BHP. And Resolution Copper is the largest unmined copper deposit in the world, according to Rio. It's just outside the town of Superior in Arizona. That's 55 minutes from Phoenix International Airport. And so we're the only junior in that donut. We know that there's a silver mine. We know there's silver potential. But maybe I'll ask the question to Craig, because you've seen some indication on surface that might lead you to believe that we should be also exploring for the copper potential of the property.
Well, it's everybody knows Silver King's high grade silver deposit, but we're sitting right in one of the most prolific copper belts in the world. As Elaine said, Resolution is not very far away from us. The Magma mine was a very high grade, smaller tonnage. I think it was 25 million tons of about 5% copper. So it was a smaller tonnage, but very high grade copper deposit with significant silver and other metal credits. And in my opinion, the Silver King is basically part of that copper mineralizing system. The Magma mine had similar mineralogy, which everybody focuses on it. For Silver King's stromayerite, a copper silver sulfide, not a very common mineral, only occurs where you have large or high percentage of copper in your mineralizing fluid. So you've got copper silver sulfide. They had that at Magma mine, And there's significant copper at Silver King. It wasn't really recovered in the past, but it could be very significant for a future operation. And also in this work we've been doing around the historic silver producer, I found numerous copper occurrences. And actually the magma mine was a vein and replacement deposit in certain types of rocks, limestone units that wrap around the hill and are on the Silver King project. The mineralization is very similar to the magma replacement mineralization, which was again high-grade copper. I think we have a potential for having a piece of a porphyry system. We could be in the halo of resolution, or we could have another porphyry deposit sitting underneath us. And it's interesting, everybody goes with a small land position, little hole in the donut, but if you look at it, the resolution deposit itself would fit largely within the confines of our land position if it happened to be underneath us. So, we've got potential for a copper deposit there, and we're just starting to get a look at that, but I think that's a significant plus to the project.
I've known Craig for 10 years. He's a very conservative geologist, as he should be, but this is the most bullish I've seen him in 10 years. I like it.
Okay, good to put that into context, then. Thank you. Okay, great. Just to wrap this up, because we're getting a bit long here. The stock has been, as you said, profiting from the macro environment, profiting from the news about Silver King, so come up quite a bit from its lows and then earlier this year. What do you think, let's say, it's pure speculation, of course, but how far do you think this Prismo could run if you're successful at Silver King, if you start to drill out Bradger? And also if you were able to prove up some sort of copper potential there.
Well, so let me answer that in two parts. The first part is if we're successful in identifying additional high-grade silver mineralization at Silver King. So it produced 6 million ounces. There's some old reports that state that some of it was left behind, and there's ore in the mine. We'll see, but we're fairly confident that the mine was not exhausted. So I think that any success through the drill bit would be extremely rewarding for our shareholders. The other part is the copper project. I mean, if we're in the halo of resolution, or if we have our own piece of a porphyry deposit, then that's a total game changer. It's put on top of the potential of the silver, then it would be transformational for Prismo Metals.
Well, that's great to hear, because full disclosure here, we're shareholders too, and pretty happy at the moment already. So looking forward to things working out. Thank you, gentlemen, for taking the time. Great to be able to talk to you, and fingers crossed that we'll have good results starting perhaps this month already. Thank you.
Thank you, BR.